Welcome to Hire, Lead, and Chill.
Hey everybody, how's it going out there? Shawn, Hire, Lead, Chill. It's right around 4 o'clock. Got a really cool guest. One of the reasons I'm late right now is because him and I were sitting around like we were sitting at a bar, just kind of chatting and just figuring some things out. I'll get our guest on here in a minute, Randy. I want to just mention a few things. We've got 4 p.m. Eastern time every Tuesday. And we've got a podcast that's going on. We've got a Facebook Live that's live right now. YouTube, I think, is live, and we're all over the place on these places that I don't even know some of them. So it's all good. Next Tuesday, you'll see some postings on this on the group and stuff. But next Tuesday, we're going to bring it back to about 3 p.m. There were some scheduling conflicts with Jeannie Henderson, who's going to be my guest, who is part of ISSA and all the cleaning stuff that she does and super entrepreneur for many, many years. And so 3 p.m. next week, normally it's 4 p.m. Let me talk briefly about what's going on with Hire, Lead, and Chill, the company, and some recruiting stuff for like a minute or two. And then we'll bring our guest, Randy, in. And I'm not sure where it's going to head, but we'll figure it out. So real quick, the boring stuff. We had a CPI report was out this morning. Looks like inflation's kind of settling down a little bit, but it's still there. It looks like the economy's growing at like 2%. We're just about 4% after COVID. All that stuff's going on. So the money's a little bit tight for those seasonal companies that lock down in the winter. We're not doing a lot of window cleaning in Minneapolis, Minnesota in January and December. We're ice fishing there, man. So the money gets a little bit tight. And we're out of COVID money for the most part. So that stuff's gone. So we're really nimble again and back to what normal may be. So marketing is really, really important. Recruiting is very, very important right now, obviously. Cool thing is we're seeing the labor market loosen up a little bit. It's a little bit easier to get application flow coming in. Unemployment rate for February was just a smidge under 4%. So, back in, last year we were seeing as low as 3.4%, I think in January of last year, 23. And I think in like maybe April or June, somewhere in there was 3.4% again. That was like the record low for like since the man was on the moon, literally. So that was, there were some tight issues there. Once we get up closer to that 4%, we should start to see a normalized, really good labor market. So then, what are you going to do? Why do you need a recruiter? Let me tell you why you need a recruiter. Because when you start to get hundreds and hundreds of applications, how are you going to get through all those? Unless you enjoy reading resumes and going through stacks and stacks of applications or online applications. Our screening system gets it through the funnel really, really quick. So it's a matter of we'll do everything for you, research the labor market. We're going to put the job post together. We're going to create it all for you. We're going to manage your Indeed. I hate Indeed. You hate Indeed. We're going to manage it for you, though. You don't have to think about it. All the way through the funnel, automation and all that good stuff. Our proprietary screening system, as you guys all know about that. So, dial me up. I'll throw in my calendar like as we always do. I got yelled at by my partner for not talking about it enough. I come on here, we do a podcast, I sit around and have fun. I forget to tell you that we do some recruiting too with Hire, Lead, and Chill. So I thought I'd throw that out there today. Enough of the boring stuff. Let's get our man in, Randy, our main man, our main guest for today, Randy Crane, or as he is sometimes referred to as the fearless marketer. What's happening, Randy?
Thanks very much for having me on the show. Shawn, it's a pleasure being here.
Excellent. Why don't you tell some people about you? We're a couple, 2 war horses here. We've been around the block a little bit. Why don't you tell some people about you and sort of what's happening?
Well, buddy, let me tell you something. I'm definitely an old war horse. And, it's so funny because, I was 25 like a week ago. That's how it feels.
I hear you.
The years just pass by, don't they?
It's crazy.
So for me, I've been in the marketing trade since for the last 43 years. And I'm not one of those people that, hey, I got into marketing and then I went out to build houses for 10 years and then came back to marketing. This is the only thing I've ever done.
Yeah.
Okay, I started off working for bigger corporations, and found out in a very short period of time that I didn't like that at all. And so in 1993, I opened my own business. And I've been in business ever since. I have, I think we've worked on 5,500 campaigns,
Wow.
marketing campaigns in my career. We've generated over 2 million sales leads and I think a little over $1.5 billion in revenue for our clients.
That's phenomenal. That's
So
phenomenal.
yeah, it's been a good ride.
Yeah. Yeah. How did you make, the switch into the digital, the internet, now the AI, how did that sort of look? If you look at the spectrum of when you started, when there was, no internet, I remember, I remember two channels on the black and white television growing up. And then you kind of had Pong and Atari came out, and then it was like, oh my God, where are we headed with this?
You know what? I'm so glad. It's interesting because I remember it was 1967,
Yeah.
and my brother had just started work at a company called Shell Oil as a computer programmer. And we were all sitting at the dinner table one night. He had said, Dad, he says, one day there's going to be computers in everybody's home. And my father turned around and he said, are you out of your mind? Who would ever have a computer in their house?
Yep.
Now, don't get me wrong. My father was he was a good businessman, but he was a businessman for that time.
Right. Right.
If you were to take
nobody saw that coming back then, right?
I know.
Yeah.
If you were to take that man today, same with your dad. If you had taken them and you moved them from 1967 to 2024,
yeah,
he'd never be able to cope.
Right. Right.
Okay. Right. So I remember that all through the years. And for me, it was 1984. And I remember thinking to myself, you know what? The world's changing.
Yeah.
And I either change with it or I'm going to be left behind. So I started, I bought a small computer. Okay. I think it was an IBM XT at the time.
A small computer the size of a car.
So anyways, I started learning DBase and DOS and Lotus 1-2-3.
Yeah.
And I started getting my head around it. And then, of course, in the early 90s, I was so excited because AOL came out.
Yep.
And it was like, you got mail.
You've got mail. Yep.
And so that was kind of a thrill. But I mean, I look at my history, and I remember sitting working, and I thought the greatest technology that ever came out was a fax machine.
Right.
Okay. I mean, what a great piece of equipment that was. I mean, prior to that, you and I were writing letters.
Yes.
And putting them in the mail.
Yep.
Okay. So, for me, the big change came in the early 90s. And that's when I started to really hunker down on learning, computerization, because I knew that that's how this was all going to go.
Yeah.
When, I kind of grew up in the whole area of conventional marketing, where it was TV, radio, newspapers, magazines. And so I was there all the way through the 80s, and I was there at the decline in the 90s. When it all crashed. Yep. Companies like the big ad agencies were falling apart.
Yep.
Okay. And the whole decentralized system started coming into play. And I knew that Facebook was going to be, I think even before that with MySpace, I thought it was going to be a big winner. And so I started focusing on that. And and I don't know whether I told you this, and I don't want to make this into a huge story, but I was originally going to be a priest.
All right.
And I was about 6 weeks away from taking my vows.
Wow.
And, they had me in for an interview, and because they have an interview with you before they bring you on as a priest to make sure you're a good fit for the Catholic Church. So I figured while they were interviewing me, I would interview them. Which in retrospect, was probably not the best idea at the time. And, but I didn't feel I was getting all of the truth.
Yeah.
And so after we decided that I would leave the Catholic Church altogether, but I continued my studying in religion, but it wasn't just Catholicism, it was everything now.
Right, right.
Okay, so I started reading it all, but I needed to make money in the meantime. And so I got into sales and quickly transitioned into marketing. And I started reading marketing stuff. And this went on for a few years. And something weird happened. I started realizing that human beings don't make decisions based on facts and figures. They make it based on emotion. So the two actually kind of became one for me.
Yeah.
And for the last 33 years, I've been focusing on the emotional content.
Yeah. Yeah.
And how to drive customers.
There is there's something to be said with that, where, you know, the automobile industry, for example, went from, you know, this is to get you from A to B. This is the purpose behind it, to then going, wait a minute, there's a lot of females coming into the market now. There's a lot of males that are having families. There's a lot of car accidents. There's a lot of, you know, you have all these things that were happening with, there were no seatbelts in cars. Now there's a lot of attention drawn to that in the 70s and 80s and so on. And now we're selling safety. We're not selling a car, we're selling safety.
Right.
Minivans came out, and now there's airbags. There's, you know, there's all that. So that's an emotional sell right there. And
without a doubt,
you know, and I think that, to me, that's the most logical one that I see, that everybody can relate to. And products, I think, tend to be something that, you know, what's emotional about a light bulb? I don't know what's, you know, things like that can get tricky. But so you've got to really be in tune with your audience, I would think, or your market, or something. What is it when you have something that's not like super sexy and shiny and exciting, like a red automobile or a car that most everybody has? I mean, there's some things that are tough with that.
You know, I had a chance to meet with a major running shoe company last year. And if I told you the name, you'd know them right away. Anyways, they called me in. So my first question to them is, okay, so tell me, what's really sexy about running shoes? And they all just kind of sat there. I said, well, you know, let's talk about sneakers. You know, everybody knows about smelly sneakers. You know, do yours stink? No, ours don't stink. And I said, well, you know what? So I went through a whole series of these questions. And as a matter of fact, there's really nothing sexy about running shoes. Okay. Nike, in the last 30 years, and let me ask you the question, what does Nike do?
Nike makes you feel like Michael Jordan.
What does Nike make?
You tell me. I don't know.
They make running shoes.
Huh?
They make running shoes.
Okay.
But Nike never sells running shoes.
Yeah.
You will never see an ad on TV for Nike running shoes. Why? Because that's not what they sell. They sell achievement. They sell inspiration. They sell adventure. That's the core message that they deliver.
I love that. There's something that just popped into my head, and I want to make sure it doesn't go away. And I talk to a lot of business owners that talk about value, you know, price. There's a certain amount of price and value. But I think even emotion trumps that too. I mean, what is the value of a $300 pair of Nikes? I mean, they're Nike shoes for $300. You tell me that people are buying a good value. That's we'll pay a little bit more for a better value shoe. Bullshit. That's not at all
What is
what
value
Nike does.
based on? What are you basing value on?
Exactly.
You see, when it comes to something like value, value is perspective. Okay, you say, what's the value in buying a $300 pair of running shoes? Matter of fact, you're probably wearing a pair of hush puppies on your feet right now. Okay.
You
But
don't
to
want to know what
somebody,
I'm doing underneath the camera on a Zoom.
but to somebody else,
Yeah.
that value is greater. So it's perspective. Does everybody buy Nike? No, they don't. But they have a sector of the market that do.
Yeah.
And those are the people that they buy from. You know, a friend of mine, Simon Sinek, he once said that I want to sell to people that believe what I believe, not to people who don't believe what I believe.
Yeah.
A classic example of that is Apple. Apple is a perfect example of that.
Yeah.
What does Apple do? They make computers. Okay. But their vision for the company is so much different than PC, Microsoft. Right. You know, have you ever seen somebody with a PC laptop? Okay. I mean, you know, it's scraped, it's scored, it's fallen on the ground a few times, chip out of the corner. You never see that with Apple.
Yeah. Yeah.
People that own an Apple computer shine that nice little logo to make sure it's nice and shiny all the time, because their perspective is different. So when it comes to value, it's value in the offer that you provide. So when I take on a new client, I say to them, what do you offer? And then they'll tell me what they offer. And I'll say, great, what's the value? And what is the value that they can deliver to the customer? So I tend to work on things which we call a value stack. Okay. If you buy my product, I'm going to give you this that's going to help you become more successful. This is going to make you a better human being. I'm going to give you this, and I'm going to give you this, and I'm going to give you this training on this. And this training that I'm giving you here is going to be associated with a book. And if you read the book, you're going to be more successful again. And I'm going to give you this and this and this and this. Because I'm building up the value. And every time I build up the value and I tell you why I'm doing it, because I'm not doing it for me, I'm doing it for you. I want you to be able to use my product and have the best experience possible. So when it comes to a customer buying your product, what is the value that you deliver? I want to be able to create a sense of comfort that they know that they've just made the right choice. Nike does the exact same thing.
Right.
Apple does the exact same thing. They do it a little differently, but they all do it the same way. They build that value. They build that sense of comfort in their customers because they want people to believe what they believe, not just buy their product for the sake of buying a product. Okay. You walk into an Apple store and you say, hey, listen, I'm looking for a cheap Apple computer. No such an animal.
Right. Right.
One of my clients, his son went to apply for Apple as a tech. And anyways, he went through the whole interview process and they made him an offer. And he said, well, geez, he says, that's not enough money. And he said, you know what? You're right. It's not enough money. Thank you very much for coming in. You're not the right person for Apple. It wasn't based on the fact of the money. It was based on the fact that they're looking for a specific type of person.
Right.
where money is not an issue. They want to work for Apple because they want to be part of that culture. They want to be part of that movement.
Right.
Right.
And I always tell my audience, there's such a correlation between marketing and recruiting. With marketing, you've got this spectrum, and you've got these certain tasks and strategies, and at the end of that spectrum, you've got either a prospect or a client. In recruiting, you've got almost the same sort of strategies. You're just selling a job. You're selling a career. You're selling security for your family. You're to your point about the emotional things.
Absolutely.
And at the end of that spectrum, we've just got somebody called a candidate or an employee. And so that, to your point, there are, in the job ads that I read and the job ads I used to write before I knew what I was doing, I wouldn't let my son apply for that job. And one of the things that sometimes in the industry that we serve, which is the home service industry, your pressure washers, window cleaners, residential home cleaning, commercial cleaning, janitorial, and all lawn care, hardscape, all those things. We just want somebody that can work super hard and, will stick around for a while. And I'll look at it and we want a sales guy, but I want to pay him 100% commission and I don't want to do this, that, and the other. And if that's what your business model is, that's okay. But just know, if I pull 5 other ads that are on Indeed or on ZipRecruiter, and I give you those 5 and then give you yours, I want you to look at it and tell me which would you have your own son apply for or your own daughter.
Without a doubt.
Right. And there's something to be said about that. And when you're talking about emotional decisions, and I think to some extent there's a spectrum where you got somebody that's kind of just shopping around. It's not real urgent. So maybe we can educate them a little bit, and we can send them some educational things and some free things and that sort of thing, and try to make sure that we're putting them in a position to feel comfortable about choosing our business to provide them whatever service they need or product.
Yeah.
So why are we not doing that in the same regard for recruiting? You got to be well spoken. Are we going to? We're not citing Shakespeare. We're not hiring an actor to do Shakespeare.
We talked about this. And but you see, it's not even just the employers, but it's the people too.
Yeah.
I remember my son, he was in school in grade 12, and they were teaching him how to get a job. And I said, so what did you learn? He said, this is what they told me. They said to make a whole bunch of resumes, go around to all the stores and hand them out. I said, well, that's crappy advice. And he said, what do you mean? I said, look, that's not how you get a job. That's how you deliver the mail.
Right.
Okay. So he says to me, well, can you show me what to do? I said, yeah, absolutely. I said, if you walk into a store or you walk into a business, you're going to be greeted by somebody behind the counter, somebody who's working there. Okay. And you walk in and you say, hi, is there any openings? And they'll say, no, there's not. Well, can I leave my resume? Yeah, you can. Okay, great. 10 seconds after you walked out the door, it's in file 13.
Yeah.
Because you pose a threat. Now, but if you walk in and you say, hi, is the owner here? No, I'm sorry, the owner's not here. Okay, great. What's his name? Okay. And do you have a phone number for him? Like, does he have a cell number? And yeah, okay, great. Can I have that too, please? Okay, can I have his email address too while I'm here? And I take my little pad and I write all this down. I go home that night, pick up the phone, I call him up. I'll say, hi, Dave, it's Randy. And we've never met before, but I was by your store today. And geez, I see you really need a good salesperson working there. Or you really need a good worker behind the counter, whatever it is that you think you need. And they'll usually say, well, why do you say that? Well, I visited your store today and my God, I walked out without having any product in my hand. You see, when you do something like this, you're taking that prospect, the person who owns the company, the customer, whatever the case is, and you're throwing them off kilter. You walk into a store and you walk into the store, sales rep comes up to you and says, "Hi, can I help you?" Shawn, what do you say?
Yes. You need help. Help me. Or help me.
Most people would turn around and say, "No, thank you. I'm just looking."
Right. Right.
And then the salesperson would walk away.
Right.
Okay. Which defeats the whole purpose of a salesperson in the first place. So by turning around and speaking something different, and I remember I was asked to come into a retail chain in Canada about 6 years ago, and they wanted me to train their salespeople. And I didn't know anything about selling dresses. Okay. So I get in there, and lady comes in, young girl, and she says, I said, "Can I help you?" And she said, "No, I'm just looking." I said, "That's great." I said, "Can I ask you something?" She said, "Yeah." I said, "I have a dress that just came in that would look freaking awesome on you. Would you like to try it on?" And she said, "Yeah." That day she walked out of there with $400 worth of merchandise.
What about,
because it's not something that they hear regularly.
right.
So coming back to the story about the recruiting, when you call a guy up and you say to him, "Listen, you know what? I was in your store today, and I walked in with full pockets and empty hands, and I walked out with full pockets and empty hands." It makes him now start to question what it is he's doing.
Yeah.
Maybe I do need to talk to this guy. And then when you get in to speak with him, it should be a two-way conversation. It shouldn't be a one-way, well, what experience do you have? How much education have you got?
Yeah.
It shouldn't be all, do you know what you're doing? Yes, no. I mean, it shouldn't be about that. It's up to the applicant to find out what it is that person needs. What's going to make their life better?
Right. Right.
Because if all you're doing is going in to get a job, you're going to get you're going to get paid minimum wage.
It aligns with what we were talking about with that sort of the take the word marketing out of any sentence and throw in the word recruiting. And,
yeah.
and to your point about the Apple computer, that type of person is the person that Apple wants as a client.
Absolutely.
And also with that type of person that you said with Apple, that's the type of person that Apple wants to work here, not some guy that's trying to make more money than everything. So with that said, that has a lot to do with your company's core values and your company's culture. And I've got a buddy that his culture literally is, I've got a bunch of beer in the fridge, I've got ping pong, and I've got stuff. I want us to hang out together. I want people that I would hang out and have a beer with working for my company. That's his culture. Now that doesn't work for every company, but that is a culture that he adheres to. And that can bite you a little bit sometimes, and he admits that, but that's his culture, and he's doing, just fine, a few $1 million in sales, and for the home service industry, that's pretty damn good. So there's something to be said about that. And we like to talk about, a lot of small businesses don't even know what their culture is. And I think that's okay to be aware of that. It's not okay not to have a culture and core values and that sort of thing. It's okay to be aware you don't, but you damn well better do something about it. Or you're kind of just, got one oar in the water and you're going to be going in circles.
It's funny. I promote my core values.
Yep.
I have 15 core values that everybody in my company live by. And it's not a laundry list, but these are who we are.
Yep.
And when I bring on people, I talk to people about my core values, because it's those core values that make Fearless Marketer what it is. And if you give me a second, it's like I want to be doing business with people that I like to do business with. I mean,
Yeah.
Shawn, you know what? I just met you, you and I, but I could sit around, hang out with you all afternoon.
Right.
You're kind of my kind of guy. Okay. And this is the part in the conversation where you say, Randy, you're my kind of guy too.
Yeah, Randy, come on. Like, I told everybody that at the beginning. That's why we were running late.
So what I'm saying is that it's those alignment of those core values.
Right.
Because this tells a story of who you are. Not only that, but it also gets everybody singing out of the same hymn book.
Yeah.
I see this all the time. People go to a website and they see a certain image that they portray in their mind. And then all of a sudden they'll get an email from you, and that email is contradictory of what I just saw on your website, which is contradictory to what I see on your social media, which is contradictory. In order to have a successful business, everybody's got to be singing out of the same hymn book.
Yeah.
When I get an email, when I send an email, when I do a text message, when people see my website, when people go to watch my videos, they get the same emotional connection.
Yeah.
It's so important, and especially when and again, somebody who's looking for a job, a great question is, why are you looking for a job? Like, what is it about? Well, I don't know. I need a job. I got to work. Okay. Well, yeah, you got to work, but do you want to be sweeping floors for a living? No. Well, what is it you want to do?
Yeah.
What would get you excited? What would be a thrill for you?
Yep.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. And a couple things. One thing that we did and do at one of the companies, and what we have a lot of our clients doing with the process is, we get somebody screened through the online application and our scoring system, and now they've done better than about 80 to 90% of the people that apply. Yep. That's something to be said. When you're doing something better than 80 to 90% of the other people, we got something going on here. So that's part of our screening. So in our view, and I'm talking specifically about technician type of people, those people that we're sending out to the client's place of work or their house to clean something, repair something, install something like that. Now, it's a little bit different when you're hiring a general manager or an ops manager or something. So I'm talking just the technician at this point. Number one, you got to move very fast when you're doing the technicians, because they're applying to 10 other jobs. Okay, so you need to move fast. And we feel that if you can get through our scoring system and do better than 80 to 90% of the people, we're ready to interview you right away. We want to get you to the interview table. But one of the things that happens is there's a lot of frustration with the way the labor market is, the way that technology has made it easy to click a button and apply to 10 places, and you don't even have to do anything. It's click where you're applied, click here, all these things. This is the reality of the world we are living in. So therefore, we better conduct our business in the world we're living in. We'd like to change it, but let's just deal with what we have. And so therefore, you better move fast. If you're not, if somebody else is, and they've applied to 10 other places. So that's number one. Number two, once you've proven that you're better than 90% of the people, I want to treat you very, 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 very respectfully at this time, because you've done something, you've accomplished something that we've asked you to do, and you did really well at it. So what we do is, and again, to bring it back to the marketing, what do we do for clients and prospective clients? We're not open Sunday, but I'll be there Sunday. I'll be there this. I'll jump through hoops.
Yeah.
If a president of a homeowners association called you, and you own a pressure washing company or a window cleaning company, or whatever, and they say, I've got about 100 people, there's 500 here, but there's 100 committed to hiring one window cleaning company to clean our windows, 100 houses. Do you mind if I stop at your office and talk with you about it? So you wouldn't sleep that night. That's that's tons of money, right? That's okay. So my view is a window cleaner, we know, brings in about $150,000 to $200,000 of revenue each year. So why don't we treat that person the same way that we treat that homeowners association president that was going to come? We should do that. And what we recommend to our clients is actually doing a group interview for technicians now. But the group interview is this: we send out a message that says something. I think you'll dig this. We send out an email message that says what to expect at the interview. 0 questions, 0 stress. We're going to present to you why you're going to wake up every morning and love to come to work for us. And when you show up, we've got snacks. These guys do energy drinks now. That's what the big thing is. We've got water. Yeah. We've got all that stuff. We've got a fruit bowl here. What can I serve you? Hi, my name's Shawn. I got a name tag on. There's going to be a few other people joining us in this presentation. You mind if I put a name tag on? Because I want to remember your name. And what can I serve you? And we have them sit down, and that's exactly what we do. We go over our core values. We go over our culture and we go, but we don't just say what it is. It's like we're plow horses, not show horses. That's kind of our culture. What does that mean? Right? What does that mean? And then we have the acronym PLOW. That's our core values. The first one means positive. And we say it like, and I train I don't do it anymore, but I train our location managers and our customers. I say, when we say, one of our core values is positive, this is not a platitude. This isn't a go get them, and be positive today. It is a moral obligation that you are positive if you work for this company, because we don't think it's morally sound that you come in and bitch and complain about things. We want this to be a positive place to work. It's an obligation that we're all positive, and we got each other's back all day long here. That's the type of, so that's sort of what we promote, and we've been doing that really successfully. And the other thing that happens is when you do a one-on-one interview and you get that no-show, that ruins your mindset, your perception. You're all pissed off, and it's very, 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 very rare that you get 5 to 7, 10 people that say they're coming and nobody shows up to a group interview. You're going to get 2 or 3 or 4 or 5. And
it's interesting. One of the things that you said that was really kind of interesting. My business, and I think everybody's business should be, we're here to serve.
Yep.
Okay. And let's face it, Shawn, this isn't your first rodeo. I'm sure you've been around the post a few times, and you know as well as I do that the reason you got into business is not the reason you stay in business.
Right.
I mean, you and I probably got into business around the same time, and we were both planning on we're all going to make $1 million by next Friday.
Yeah.
Okay. We got into business to make more money. And once we figured that ship had sailed without us, by the way, then we had to figure out why we were in business. So for me, it was to be in service to my customers.
Yeah.
Okay. And as long as I keep that in mind, that I'm here to serve you, you can look at that as a weakness, and I look at it as a strength, right?
Right. You mentioned Simon, and he has the book, and it's all about the why, right?
Oh yeah.
Good book, and but I think it's one of those things, and I say this a lot too. And when I say some of the things I say, I include myself in most of it at one time in my life.
Yeah.
And that is, it's so difficult for most of us, I think, at times, to look in the mirror and be honest with ourselves, to be really, really honest with ourselves. We love to deflect and blame employees, the economy, the labor market, the interest rates, all those things. And I get that, but it's something to be said about the why. But then you got to go even deeper, because I hear a lot of people, well, my family, my kids. Well, of course, that's a given. That should be your why, or you're not a very good parent. So that kind of goes hand in hand. So it's like you got to really look at that question and get deep into it and really find out what is it what is your why. And then my question to you specifically is this, and I don't know the answer to this necessarily, and I don't know that there's a right answer. Maybe it's individual. Is there a personal why in a business or professional career why? Is there, or are those things not separate?
Absolutely. And you know what? I hate to do this, but I'm going to have to give you a story. For me, we were just talking about, how we got into business, and the reason we stay in business is different than, and I know for me, my whole life was spent up until probably 10 or 15 years ago was spent chasing money. Got to chase the money, man. Got to get that cash. Got to get that money. Never did catch it. Got a little sniff of it every now and then, but and I think that's the same with most people. See, I'm a big believer that you can't have what you want in this life. You can only have what you are.
Right.
A man who wakes up who's got $1 billion in the bank doesn't wake up wondering what it's like to be poor.
Right.
He doesn't think anything about it. He doesn't think about being rich either.
Yep.
He doesn't think about it.
Yep.
So I learned that when you start to act like a winner and you start treating people like you are a winner. And when I say that, I mean, you're confident, you exude that within you. And this starts to change who you are.
Yeah.
And it's funny because, I'll prove this, is that, Shawn, what was your very first job?
I worked at Enterprise Rent-A-Car 30 some years ago, behind the rental counter and then pounding the phone selling.
Okay. You were working at the rental car place.
Yep.
You were a clerk, right? Clerk behind the counter?
Yep.
Okay.
Right.
And when you were a clerk, you got all the advantages and disadvantages of being that clerk. Today, you're a successful podcast host. Okay. And you get all the advantages and disadvantages of being a podcast host.
Right.
You don't get the advantages and disadvantages of being a clerk anymore.
Right.
So what happened was you evolved. You became something more than you were. Now, I think everybody evolves, but not everybody realizes that they evolve.
That's right.
So for me, the big change was the fact that I started looking at things through different glasses.
Yeah.
Money doesn't make you happy. Well, what does that mean? Okay. Because I think I'd be happier if I had more money. Then one day I had a friend of mine say to me, she was just a miserable woman. And she said, if I could only make $1 million, if I could only win the $1 million lottery,
right,
I'd be happy. And I turned to her and I said, you know what? You would just be a miserable bitch with $1 million.
That's right.
And then it dawned on me that money doesn't make you happy.
That's right.
It dawned on. And I've been hearing this since I was a kid.
Yep.
And so were you. And then I was 50 years old before I finally figured it out.
Right. Because it's never enough. It's never enough anyway. When you get to 1 million, you want 5. When you get to 5, you want 100. It's right. Never enough. Never enough. Right.
Look, you know what? I have enough money I could be comfortable.
Yep.
I'm 65 years old. Okay? I may or may not be in the last quarter of the game here.
Right.
But I don't retire. I don't, because I'm afraid that if I do retire, I'll probably just die off.
Right.
So I stay active, but because I love what I do.
Yep.
You have to love it, man.
Right. Right.
You know, I get a chance to, if I were retired, I wouldn't get a chance to hang out with you.
There's a lot of stuff to unpack there, because I talk a lot on my podcast, and even when I talk to when I go out and I do a presentation or speak at an association or something, one of the biggest things that I enjoy, the most enjoyable things to me, is after that presentation, almost always you get a couple people, hey man, you know, this and that and this and that and this and that. But you get the one guy that kind of was, you can see him standing behind a little bit, and you're kind of looking at him. And then he waits till everybody's gone and comes up to you and says, man, do you have a couple minutes? I really got to talk to you.
I love that.
And I sit down and that's a 3-hour conversation. And he's telling you, my marriage is in trouble. I think I need to fire everybody and restart. And you start to have this raw, real life conversation. So I tell my staff, not enough. I tell my staff that in our little world that we call our home service industry, the space that we are in, we changed the world. Think about when not only have we placed thousands and thousands of people since we've been doing this and have provided them with a career with some great companies out there that's our clients, but we've helped marriages. Do you think a guy or a lady that owns a window cleaning company out there that is wondering how they're going to make it through tomorrow because they don't have enough employees and they're short staffed, and they're going to have to make calls to their clients about not being able to make it they're losing sleep. Their wife or their husband might be calling an attorney soon to get some paperwork put together for the divorce. How are they? They're looking at their kids and not even hearing their kids. They might be throwing the ball, but they're not listening to them. They're not there. They're worried about when we are able to make sure that they are properly staffed and have good staff. Their marriages get better. Their ability to be a better mom and dad are better. Their ability to go to a grocery store and interact with human beings we make that world a lot better world. And that's, to your point, it's a lot to do with perception. And I talk an awful lot about perception. You've mentioned that a couple of times throughout this hour.
Absolutely. And you know what? And like I said, how one person perceives life is different than another person.
Yep.
Okay.
In the same environment.
Same environment. Yep. And, you know, it's funny because the Hindus believe that this is all just an illusion.
Right.
You know?
Yeah.
And, you know, it's funny because, you know, to a great degree, I'm wondering whether that's actually true because, you know, you get into a situation where you start to think, well, what you smell, taste, touch, and feel is what's real.
Right.
Well, that's not real. That's just electrical signals being transcribed by your brain.
That's right.
So when you start to realize that, you start to realize that the world you live in is completely pliable. And now you can be anything.
Yep.
And you can do anything. There's no restrictions. The problem is with people is that whether they're looking for a job, whether they're making sales or whatever, they put restrictions on themselves. And those restrictions, and then they blanket it with some, it's your fault. Right, it's my fault. It's the government, it's the educational system, it's church, it's my parents. My father was an alcoholic. That's the reason I am.
Right.
You know, my mother was beat my children. That's why I do.
Right.
I mean, it's not like we haven't heard all of these same stories before. Okay. People put their own restrictions on their lives and then try to live by them, which is probably the dumbest thing in the world.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
I mean, who would have ever, I mean, you know what, 20 years ago, who would have ever thought I would be sitting on a podcast here or standing on a stage telling people how to make a living as a marketer? I mean, come on, really?
Right.
Who would have thought that? You didn't think it.
No. And I resisted it, to be honest with you. Somebody had told me, you got to do it. What are you talking?
I know, me too.
you know, and then when you just give it a shot, some things magic happens. It's, you know, the simplest way, or one of the simplest ways I look at perception, in a simple way to look at it is, it's pouring rain and I got a shovel in my hand and my job is to dig a hole. And that dirt's kind of light and it's soft and it's light. Now it's raining. Now I'm digging heavy mud, right? And so I'm bitching about that rain. I hate that rain. I'm complaining about that rain and why this rain, why this and that. And then 10 minutes later, in that same pouring rain, that same shovel's in my hand, I look over and I hear these giggling little boys in diapers running around in the mud puddles in the water, splashing and giggling. And I get this big smile on my face when I look over and see that. Now, yep. How can that rain possibly be the same rain? It's the same rain, the same shovel, the same person, the same circumstance. My perception completely changed. And you can put me on a lie detector and I will pass it when I told you this rain sucks. And when I turned around and saw those kids enduring that, I passed that lie detector too by saying the rain is beautiful. This is beautiful. That's crazy perception. And it's all of it was under my control. And most times we don't even realize that.
Oh, you know, and this is where you and I were talking about misconceptions earlier.
Right.
You know what? And I'm sure you've noticed this as well. You know, people go through life and they go, you know, la, 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 la. Fine. You know, go to school, get the education, date the girl, marry the girl, have some kids, buy a house, buy a car, you know, get a pension and die.
Right.
And you know what? What a sad way to live your life.
Yep.
You know, for me, it's always been about, you know, even not for me, you know, talking about, you know, in people in general, you know, we have 80,000 thoughts a day.
Right.
And people say, oh, well, I can't understand why my life hasn't changed. It's just that 95% of the thoughts you had today are the same thoughts you had yesterday.
Right.
Okay. Guy turns around and he reads a self-help book and he says, oh my God, I read the self-help book. You know, I know it. You don't know Jack.
Right.
You know, I've read the Bible 300 times in my life. Because it speaks to me differently every time I read it.
Yep.
Another great book that I absolutely love is Think and Grow Rich.
Yeah. Yep.
Okay. Awesome book. And I probably read it 30 times.
Napoleon, right?
Napoleon Hill, yeah. And don't, you know, it's funny because a good friend of mine by the name of Bob Proctor, he recently passed away a couple of years ago.
Yep.
I've been friends with Bob for 40 years. And he gave me my first copy of that book. And I still have it to this day.
Yeah.
You know, and I'll tell you, it's a wonderful book, but you see, it's not something you can just read.
Right.
You know, it kills me. People say, oh, well, you know, I went to the store and I bought this book. And I said, great. Well, how many times did you read it? Oh, I read it once. And I'll say, well, why did you only read it once? What a waste of money that is.
Right.
Okay. I mean, I'll sit there and I'll read the book over and over and over and over. I'll wear out the pages reading it because I get the value from it.
Right.
You read a self-help book and you say, oh, yeah, well, I learned this. Well, that's fine. But 90% of what you read, you missed.
Yeah.
The first time around.
Big time. And plus like we talked about, you know, we went from kind of like 30 years ago when the websites and internet and computers were just coming out, and we've come all this way to AI now, and that's obviously here to stay. But there are certain fundamental principles that will always be true, that will never go away. And that's, to me, one of the best things about a good book, and that's one of them. Napoleon Hill's book is one of those books where I could read it 30 years ago You can read it today.
Read it again
You can
today.
read it because it's so sound in its principles. And,
You know,
and,
you're
and to
absolutely
your
right.
point, that's why you need to read it more than once, because you're a different human being today than you were 10 years ago.
And you know what? And that's what I'm saying. You know, how many times have you and I watched a movie and you watch it the second time around and you say, I didn't see that.
Right.
Because you just don't get it. You know, so people turn around and they say, well, we're living in a world of AI now.
Right.
So I can go to Audible and Audible read the book to me.
Yeah.
Okay, you lazy bitch. You know, get the book, read it.
Right.
And, you know, on the other hand, too, you know, people say, well, you know, we've got AI today. AI processes information at about 4 million bits of information per minute. You know, the human brain processes 40 billion bits of information per second.
Yeah.
Okay. People think, oh, well, you know what? We're living in a world of AI. AI is going to change everything. It's not going to change nothing. What it's going to do is it's a tool right now.
Right.
It's not human.
It's as prominent as websites are, which are like, we take that for granted every day. It's kind of like our underwear. We know it's, you know, we don't feel it all, but we know it's there if you ask us, but we don't feel it, or it's like breathing. I know I'm breathing, but I don't have to stop and say, wait, I got to breathe. And websites are like that. When that first came out, I remember dial-up. Dial-up was like the best damn thing on the planet, but it took 2 minutes after you clicked to get to the next page of that website. And today, you know, and I'm not one that fears AI. I'm not one that, you know, thinks it's, you know, I don't know where I'm not smart enough to know where it's going to head or what it's going to do. I use it weekly, not every day, but I use it weekly. And it's not emotional. And I always say to people in the recruiting game, and certainly in the marketing game, it's still a people business. And it's always going to be a people business. Until you hire robots to do everything, you're going to be in the people business. And there's certain fundamental things like emotions. You know, AI has no emotions right now, and it's trying to duplicate some things like that. But I will assure you that even if you have AI doing a presentation, that guy that comes up to you and wants to talk to you about his problems with his wife and his business and his employees, that's going to take you to sit down and chat with that guy.
You know, you're absolutely right, Shawn. You know, look, human beings connect with human beings. They don't connect with machines. And that's something that people have to remember here.
Yeah.
There's absolutely nothing wrong with using something like a ChatGPT to do your research. You know what? Matter of fact, I give it a list of research things to do every week. And you know what? It can do it 1,000 times faster than I can. Okay. But it's not conversation.
Right.
Okay. And I've tried this 6 ways from Sunday. So I know that, you know, you're carrying on a conversation with a machine, which is much different than carrying on a conversation with you.
Right.
Okay. I can see the look in your eye. I can see the smile on your face. I can see the express. I can sense the things about you that you don't realize you're giving off. Right. And I don't realize what they are. But it changes the connection between you and me.
That's right.
And they're not anything. Okay. And this is what I'm saying. You know, people say, well, you know what? You're 1,000 miles away from this person. It doesn't matter. I can see you and I can feel you. I feel the connection between us. And I'm sure you feel the same connection.
Sure.
Okay. I don't get that with a ChatGPT.
Right.
And nor will you ever get that.
Right.
So unless something drastically changes, which I doubt it probably will, not in our lifetime.
Right.
Nope. You know, it's going to be left up to the human to converse with the human.
And I think there's I don't want to live in that world, to be honest with you. I want to be connected to people. I don't want to live in that world. And I think that, AI is one thing, and then you got like robotics. And I think AI is, I don't know that robotics is going to go very far. I think AI is just turning us into robots.
You know what? I'm gonna tell you something. I said this to my wife the other day. I said, it's really kind of weird. In 1935, the government worked for the people.
Right.
Somewhere along the line, it switched. Do you know what I'm saying?
I do know what you're saying. I know exactly what you're saying.
Okay. I mean, I live in Canada, and they're spending $400 million going over here, $4 billion going over there.
Yeah.
And we got people living on this, Canadians living on the street.
Yeah.
In tents.
Yep.
You don't think that's a shift in priorities? And you've got the same problem in the U.S.
That's right.
Okay. You don't think that that's a shift in priority?
Right.
So, but again, you know what? I mean, I always figured without going down that rabbit hole, I always figured that, kid goes to school, he goes to, decides he's going to be a lawyer, goes to law school. They teach him the law and they teach him how to lie.
Right.
I always figured there was a correlation between lawyer and liar, right? So if he gets to be a really good lawyer, they'll make him a judge. And if he's a really good judge, they'll make him a politician.
That's right.
Okay. He's still a liar.
Right. Yeah.
And I don't care what country you're in, Canada, the US, you know what?
It's the same.
They're all the same.
Right.
Okay. And I think everybody has that same consensus. Right.
Yep.
So
what do you got going on with getting your website, your business? Who's your customer and what do you do for them, just real quickly, because we didn't even talk about that.
Yeah. Well, you know what? Like I said, I've dealt with a lot of major corporations in my life, my career. My ideal customer is that small to medium-sized business. And I love these guys because in the big corporate world, if you make a sale, get 1,000 people to like your page, they look at it and they go, yeah, okay, thank you, goodbye. Where with a small company, they get one person to like their page and they fall apart. They just think it's fantastic. You know what? I love that gratification from that.
Mm-hmm.
You know what? I'm at the point in my career now where I don't really chase money. It's just more, I'm more excited to work with the person.
Yeah.
If I like you, man, I'll just work with you. I just love it. Yeah. People can reach out to me. I answer my own emails, I answer my own text messages. So, if people have questions or they need help, they can just reach out to me and I'm happy to help.
Awesome. All right, man. We're up on the hour here. So let's do this, Randy. I'm gonna ask if you have any last words that you want to say before we close shop here.
Absolutely. Dare to be different. Dare to be different. Don't be what everybody tells you to be. Okay? If you're looking for a job, be different. Set yourself apart from the herd. And really reach out to the person that's interviewing you and make it about them. Don't make it about you.
Yeah. Yep.
Is that fair?
Perfect. I appreciate you being on, man. It was nice to have you on, and just like I could sit and talk.
I hope to have you back on your show again.
Yeah, we'll do that for sure. We'll dial in on. I'm gonna have my VA is gonna do an outro here, and we'll hang on though, and let's chat just a little bit if you got a minute afterwards.
Yeah, sure, no problem. I'm good.
All right. So everybody out there, I appreciate it. Next Tuesday, remember 3 p.m., not 4 p.m. We got some schedule issues. Jeannie Henderson will be on. She's phenomenal. Been on the show before. And everybody out there, just go after it. Be positive always, and God bless.